Mermaids, yes or no?
Longer answer than you may think.
Okay, darn.
There have been some genetic creations that would be similar to that in Atlantean times that may have given rise to some of those legends. In terms of them existing physically as a species on your Earth, no, but they are part of the nature world that again is a slightly altered, shifted vibrational reality to yours that sometimes overlaps in your reality, and therefore sometimes people who are sensitive to it can sometimes perceive those kinds of beings, but they don't exist in your normal physical reality.
All right. Dragons?
Similar idea. Again, they are beings that are of a higher dimensional level that you can interact with, but they exist between the planes of dimensions. They are never presenting themselves in your physical reality as the dragon that you think they do. They look quite different when they come into your reality. But the idea is that you perceive them in the way that you do when they're in their own natural state in between the dimensions. But they are higher levels of wisdom.
Megalodon.
Well, that exists. It's a giant shark.
Does it exist right now?
Several do.
Yes!
In the very depths of your oceans.
Awesome.
And a few other things you haven't found yet.
Oh, cool. Way cool. How about a hollow earth?
No, not physically.
Okay.
Again, people that may have, without intending to, crossed through different dimensional vortices may find themselves in a reality that because of their understanding of physical reality, they think actually physically is inside the Earth, when in fact they're no longer on the Earth anywhere at all.
Really?
So they just make the assumption when they come back through that particular portal that they've actually physically been inside the Earth, and they haven't. They've been somewhere else.
So there is, in a sense, something special about the idea of Sasquatch being the original hominid form that evolved on your planet. Now, you already have heard us talk about how cats can see into other dimensions, dogs can see spirits, and so on and so forth. Well, because it's more connected to nature, the Sasquatch hominid already had these abilities and was able, because they are a hominid, to push them with thought processes into a different form of recognition, recognizing parallel realities more clearly, and learning over time how to identify with those parallel realities so strongly, or other dimensions so strongly, that they began to shift into them just by the focus that they concentrated on with regard to their relationship to those particular dimensions or parallel realities, which the animals don't need to do per se. Although there are some animals that can slip in out of other dimensions from time to time. Some insects have this ability, some mammals have this ability, though it's relatively rare because it's relatively unnecessary for them to do so. However, hominids, being a little bit different in the sense of being the foundation of Homo sapiens, had the ability to contemplate certain things and focus on certain other dimensional or parallel realities they were perceiving with their natural abilities. And so in focusing that way, gave themselves the ability to actually shift in directions that most animals don't need to.
About the crop circle phenomena, which I'm
Yes.
really very interested in, and
You're
I
seeing
love the beauty
slices of a
them.
much higher dimensional form. You're only seeing a slice, a two-dimensional slice of a higher dimensional form that is the product of the collective consciousness of your world, and it's engaged with the consciousness of other realities, including the consciousness of nature itself. Wow. You're giving yourself messages and learning how to read them from a higher perspective. It's like having a communication dialogue literally with the collective higher consciousness of the entire planet.
Wow.
You're talking to Gaia. The Earth is expressed like anything in a number of dimensions. In some dimensions, you would perceive the planet as two-dimensional, flat in your language, as you say. But that's a perception of another dimensional expression of the Earth. The Earth in your dimension isn't flat. It's a sphere because that's how it's expressed in your dimensions, 3 of space and 1 of time. And there are higher dimensional versions of the Earth as well. But when people start expanding and exploring their consciousness in new ways, sometimes they can take some things a little too literally in the same dimension when what they're perceiving is aspects of things in other dimensions, because now their senses can stretch far enough to see that. But they sometimes misunderstand and assume that what they're perceiving in another dimension is actually the truth of this dimension, and it's not.
Did the world face a catastrophic event in the 1980s that erased history that caused the Mandela Effect? And if not, what is the Mandela Effect?
Now, sometimes it's just an issue of a person's memory being a little bit out of alignment. However, there is a true Mandela Effect, and the Mandela Effect is that every single moment that you redefine yourself in the present, you're actually changing the past. But as you expand your consciousness, sometimes you can now contain the memory of more than one past. And therefore, some people might say, no, history went this way, and they can be true about that. And another person can say, no, I completely remember it differently, and they can be true about that. So it's possible now, as you expand your consciousness, to remember more than one history, because you're changing your past every single time you change your present. But when you do that, for the most part, the idea of the past you now know was always your past has to present itself as if it was always your past for it to make sense linearly in your physical reality terms. But 5 minutes ago, you may not have had the same past at all. But whatever the new past is will make itself seem like that's always been the way the past was in order for you to live a life that makes sense in the present. But you're changing your past every moment that you change the present.
I always felt that there was a crystal skull buried under the sea.
You are talking about the master skull, the zero skull.
Yes, I am.
For that is the central seat of ancient Atlantis, is in the Bahamian Islands, in parts of Florida, in parts of what you now call Cuba and Puerto Rico. The empire stretched far and wide from there, but that was the central seat in that area. When the ocean level was much lower, you can see the larger landmass that was there before the oceans rose and inundated the central system of the Atlantean Islands. Why do you think there is a Bermuda Triangle?
Yeah, that's what I felt. That must be the powerhouse for that, is that the powerhouse?
The zero skull.
Zero skull.
Creates in the natural portal that exists in that area massive interdimensional fluctuations. It's not the powerhouse. The portal is natural, but the zero skull affects it in a very specific way that allows it to keep shifting interdimensionally in unpredictable ways at this point, because it is no longer focused. It's like, well, I'll just use this particular euphemism that most of you will understand. It's sort of like somebody left the stove on. But no one has access to turn it off anymore or to focus it properly. So it's still running, so to speak, by interacting with the portal, but in an uncontrolled manner.
Specifically in the United States, the western area.
Mount Shasta is a chakra point. Sedona is a vortex. The Bermuda Triangle is a vortex.
Is there any significance between Los Angeles and Las Vegas being these two major cities?
Of course there is a difference.
I mean, and energy-wise, is there any activity underneath the city?
You can see the difference.
Right.
Now, the idea, as we illustrated yesterday of your time, is that between Sedona and Shasta, there's a direct connecting line of energy. And we demonstrated that the area you call Area 51 is smack, as you say, on that line. You follow?
Right.
This is primarily because they understand that ships navigate better on that line of energy. And so it is also functioning as a doorway for ships to come through, and for the ships that they are retrofitting and retro-engineering to operate in that wavelength, in that frequency. It gives them a little bit of a push, shall we say. Now, your city of Las Vegas is slightly off that line.
Right.
The idea, therefore, you will find, is that it draws and taps into that energy to some degree, but kind of at a skewed angle.
Right.
Is that not a perfect description of Las Vegas?
Hence Sin City.
However you wish to interpret that.
Right.
This is the energy relationship. Los Angeles, and again, the idea being that it is no accident what things are called, is an opportunity for it to literally become a city of the angels vibrationally. But that is up to you.
Right.
The vortex is there that allows for that potential, but it is up to all of you to align with it and demonstrate that vibrational state.
The Nazca lines
Yes.
in Peru,
Yes.
who made those?
What you would call the indigenous beings, with some ancient understandings of technology. Some of it will be that which comes from off-world, but which became incorporated into the indigenous societies that existed at the time, sufficiently enough that they could, in that sense, call it their own, plus an understanding that they had gleaned with their own intuitive powers of how to amplify the ability to do those things simply by tapping into the infinite.
What purpose did the designs
A
serve?
number of purposes. They did, to some degree, function as markers, but the idea is that they were also used as an understanding of laying out geometric proportions that symbolized and represented a concept that you don't really have at this point in your world, in almost any culture. And it would be something like the idea of now what is going on with the crop circles, but in a very rudimentary form, in that they contain an implication of the mathematical information and ratios that underlie the template of physical reality. At the same time, they were also used ritualistically, in the understanding of being able to describe the formations, certain of the formations, from high above, through the idea of the accomplishment of what you call astral projection, in that as you leave your body, so to speak, and are then capable of describing what you see below, which can only be seen from the air, then it would be known by the teacher that you'd actually accomplished the astral projection, because there'd be no other way you could describe it. It was also used as the idea of the exemplification of ley lines on your planet, but from a very different kind of context, and also an exemplification of connections to other dimensional realms. In other words, many of those lines literally point to vortex spots that are literally doorways to other realms. It is also a map, a dimensional, an interdimensional map that leads directly to vortex spots.
What about the pyramids and the face on Mars? Are there any other artifacts on Mars?
Well, there is the pyramid that we talked about that we call the artifact that only some people on your planet know of, and most of you know nothing about and have not yet seen photographs of.
Okay, because the face on Mars we've seen photographs of. Is
yes,
that real?
and we're not going to go into that at the moment.
Okay, but the main thing...
the idea of the pyramidal artifact we're talking about is not something that most of your population is aware of yet.
Oh, cool. Well,
there is another pyramid that has yet to be found by the majority of your population, although it has been seen by a few members of your population in some of the photographs that were taken by one of your orbiting satellites around Mars. But this has not been revealed yet to the public.
Moon may be hollow?
It is not hollow. There are underground bases there. It has some large cavern areas in it. It's not completely hollow, but there are artificially constructed engineering devices within it.
Okay, because also it doesn't rotate like other moons do, so...
Well, it's tidally locked to your planet.
Gotcha.
It does rotate. It's just that its rotation is exactly the same as its orbit.
Okay. So is there anyone living there now?
Well, there are bases that are inhabited by different extraterrestrial species, now and then, yes.
Can you say which ones?
We have a few bases on your moon. The Yael have a few bases on your moon.
Okay.
Some ancient bases from the Anunnaki still exist there that are used by different beings coming and going now and then.
Okay. Was it brought here? Is it like a ship?
No.
Okay.
It is a natural object that was created through the idea of a collision of your planet with another, and it broke off. But it has been put into position artificially, and it has been artificially engineered within to maintain certain gravitational and vibrational balances for your planet to allow you to evolve in a certain window of timing.
You talk about the moon landing that we experienced and what we were shown in the film, and if that was real, or if there was another moon landing, or if we've actually ever been there?
You absolutely have been there. Now, some things have been edited out, so let's just say you didn't see the whole truth, but you have been there. And any one of you can actually verify that quite easily with a powerful enough telescope. You can see the things you left on the moon, you know. You understand?
I do. Can we see things that other people left on the moon? Or other beings left on the moon?
Well, you have. Again, sometimes that's edited out of your collective information base, but many of you are already aware that people have photographed remnants of extraterrestrial bases and other things that have been placed on the moon for a variety of reasons from different civilizations. So some of you are aware that there are artifacts there.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the pyramids. So
which ones?
Since there are so many pyramids in Egypt and in Asia, is there also an era of when those were built and for a certain like global meaning when they were built?
The oldest ones, yes. Approximately 10,500 BC, as you call it. And they had great understanding of what they were doing. Then the knowledge was lost over time, and a lot of the later pyramids do not function in the same way that the earlier ones did. The Great Pyramid of Giza served many different kinds of functions when it was operational, in its pristine state, not the least of which was that initiate priests, when brought into the understandings of the mysteries of creation, would be led into the king's chamber and would lie down in the stone coffer, and they would be taught to generate the gamma state in a meditation. And the stone coffer and the king's chamber was designed to amplify and magnify that gamma state to the point where it reverberated and amplified and then suddenly popped them out of their bodies. So that in astral form they could go to higher realms, gain knowledge, bring it back, and share that knowledge with society, although, of course, the priesthood usually kept those things to themselves as to how they achieved that knowledge. They would just simply dole it out as they needed to.
The pyramids, how did they move the stones? I've heard some different
The earliest
theories.
ones were moved through forms of levitation. And
Okay.
this is why we talk about the idea of the stone speakers, because when you understand the vibrations, the true vibrations of the stone, and you speak to them that way, whether with your own voices in harmony or through technological devices that can replicate those harmonies in a certain way, you can actually cancel the effect of gravity on the stone.
Something that really interests me is the excavation of the Sphinx.
Yes.
They say that it's about 8,000 years old, and
It's older than that.
yeah, and that's what I really was interested in knowing. What is it?
10,500.
Nice. So, what is in it?
Under it,
Yes.
mysteries.
Can't wait for that.
You have to.
I know. I know.
Imagine or visualize or recall a time when you may have seen a statue of Anubis. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not.
The jackal-headed god of the underworld, so to speak, Anubis. A jackal like a dog, sitting like the Sphinx, down, because that is originally what the Sphinx was, Anubis.
Thank you.
As Anubis is depicted most often in ancient Egyptian society, the Anubis jackal is sitting on a box. So is the Sphinx. Sitting on an underground box, an underground chamber of mysteries and secrets. Some of these have actually already been discovered and hidden from the public, but most have not, for it is not yet quite time for some of its mysteries to be revealed. But there are still several there in the underground box, in secret chambers that have yet to be opened and will not be opened until a deeper understanding is had of frequency, of resonance, of ratio and proportion. And when the right song is sung and the right vibration resounds, the box will reveal its secrets one after the other. This may occur anytime between now and the year you call 2050. It depends upon exactly the rate of acceleration in your society, the rate of ascension, what happens with respect to contact between your world and other civilizations in the contact window between 2025 and 2033. For even contact will not necessarily be the right time for the revelation of some of the mysteries in the box under the Sphinx. But it will come.
What was the Ark of the Covenant, and who gave Moses the 10 Commandments, if they actually occurred?
The Ark is a device that was mostly a communication device, but also could be used to channel energy in a variety of ways for a variety of purposes. It was a communication device between those humans and an extraterrestrial society. The 10 Commandments were not originally 10 commandments. They were guidelines that explained the idea of the relationship between you and creation. I am the Lord your God, thou shalt not have false gods before me, was originally delivered as the idea of, I am all that is. Anything you may think is a false god isn't, because I am everything and cannot be false. Quite a difference. You understand?
Yes.
So that's the idea that those guidelines were delivered, both through the idea of the auspices of telepathic instruction, but also the device was delivered from an extraterrestrial society that people on your planet referred to as angels of God, but they basically were an extraterrestrial society.
So when Moses went up and got the tablets and all of that?
A ship landed on top of the mountain and delivered what needed to be delivered.
Thank you.
But again, there was much misinterpretation, because it's coming from a very high dimensional level and being translated or stepped down into physical reality. And in that step down process, there can be automatic distortion and misrepresentation of concepts that come from higher levels if the filters for fear-based beliefs are, shall we say, getting in the way. You are teleporting all the time from moment to moment to moment to moment, but you are doing it in a sense, frame by frame by frame by frame, instead of understanding that you can actually, well, to use a colloquial phrase, you can actually skip some of the frames.
How do you skip them?
By understanding what you're doing to begin with. You have to understand the mechanism before you can use the mechanism in a different way. So a deeper understanding of the fact that you're already doing that will allow you more opportunity to see how you can skip some of the frames, so to speak. You're not really skipping frames, but that's the way it will feel. The idea is to live in the present, not be in a hurry to get somewhere else or be something you're not at the moment, and just act on your passion to the best you're able with no insistence on what the outcome should look like, because that's what keeps raising your vibration. And raising your vibration is what allows you to understand and have the, what? Epiphany of how to see the structure of what we're talking about and see more clearly what it is you're already doing and see how to use what you're already doing in a different way, because when you can see the structure more clearly through the epiphany vibration, then you can understand that space and time are your side effects, they're your illusions, and they become more flexible and more malleable. And then you have an insight as to how you can use them in a different way to make it appear as if you are teleporting farther and farther distances. The thing you have to understand is that distance is an illusion. It doesn't really exist. Everything is here and now. So you have to really wrap your mind around that concept deeply enough so that it's ingrained within you that you're not actually going anywhere. In a sense, you're just recreating a different location here.
Is it possible?
Anything is possible. What you're asking is it probable?
Okay, thank you. Is it probable to fly in this life with your physical body like Superman or Peter Pan?
Yes, it is probable. But what degree of probability depends upon the person's belief systems and the reason why they might choose such a thing and the need for it to happen in their reality.
Say you just wanted to fly just
Idle
for the fun of it.
curiosity doesn't usually do it.
Would your belief system have to be powerful enough to overcome gravity?
It's not about power, it's about clarity. There has to be a clear reason in how it serves you to do so, and how it may serve others for you to do so as well. There has to be a choice made within the idea of the exploration of a theme that is to the benefit of you and all concerned as to that happening. Now, that's becoming more and more probable in your reality as you get a better handle on the idea of what consciousness is and what beliefs are all about and how they manifest your physical reality experience, and the fact that it takes place within your consciousness and not really outside. So the idea really is a vibratory one, a resonance one, a frequency one. In the sense of how it happens in our reality, one of the ways we began to realize that such a thing was highly probable was when we first recognized that what you call location is actually a property of the object itself, not a place in which an object resides. So when you know that location is a property of the object and you learn to redefine the vibrational variable in the equation, the energy equation of the object, then if the location happens to be 50 feet off the ground and you impose that vibratory resonance or change that vibratory resonance within the location variable in the equation of the object, then the object must by definition start to exist 50 feet off the ground because that's its new locational variable. So it's all about frequency, it's all about resonance, it's all about knowing what your energy signature is and how your beliefs can align themselves to generate the appropriate energy signature to manifest that particular kind of an experience.
So I have chosen to serve people in the form of being a relationship coach.
Oh, all right. How exciting.
Thank you. And I do this through the teachings of masculine and feminine energies and the dichotomy of that in relationships.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that I'm not spreading any misinformation. I was wondering if you could clarify how the duality of masculine and feminine energies applies to the relationship dynamics romantically.
Well, the idea is for each side to be reflected what they need to allow for a balance to occur on each side of both masculine and feminine energy in each individual. Does that make sense?
So is it correct to say that I guess men operating from more feminine or wounded feminine energy are imbalanced and therefore need to attract partners that will reflect that imbalance?
The idea is that each male and each female contains the ability of the opposite, contains the reflections of the opposite. And to balance them and bring them out equally in each individual is the key. So that males have a balance of masculine and feminine energy, not meaning that they literally become more feminine, but they are able and willing to express more of the receptive energies, whereas the females in balance can express more of the idea of the assertive energies that are commonly associated with males on your planet. So that each individual in the relationship is a balance of both. And they will usually attract into their lives, whether they know it or not, whether they take advantage of it or not, those individuals who will reflect to each what they need to achieve that balance within themselves.
When that balance is reached, is that usually when partners stay together or?
Maybe. It doesn't mean that they have to. It can be that that was what they needed to achieve and then they move on to something else. So it's not necessarily absolutely expected that they have to stay together, but there is certainly a higher probability that they can if they continue to serve each other in that way. Does that help?
Absolutely, yes.
All right.
Is there a technique or strategy that I can use as a coach in my one-on-one sessions to best reflect back to my clients what they need to know at that time to help them reframe their mindset to move forward?
Well, you can ask them what their definition of the opposite energy is, and you can get them to explore any fear-based beliefs that surround it, so they can be willing to let those fear-based beliefs go about the incorporation of the duality. Does that make sense?
Could you clarify it a bit?
In other words, let's say you are, for example, dealing with a male individual who is exhibiting a lot of masculine energy, but not very much of the feminine side. You can engage them in a conversation to ask them what their definition would be, how they see, how they view, how they define the idea, what it means to them if they were to incorporate more of the feminine energy within themselves, to see if their definition is something that actually is representative of balance, or if their definition out of fear is representative of something that is not in balance, that they have an erroneous definition of what that balance would look like, so that you can begin to explore what their definitions of the balance would actually be like, so that they can lose the fear of incorporating the balance within themselves by having a more harmonious definition of what would happen should they do so. Did that make more sense?
Yes. And in the case where a male that is has less feminine heart-centered energy, and I run into this problem where clients don't often experience emotions and are shut down, I don't know how to help guide them through that situation through online interactions.
All right. Well, again, the questions is fundamentally, what are they afraid would happen if they actually allowed themselves to feel those emotions? What are they afraid the outcome of that would be? To get them to start exploring, if they're willing to start exploring what the outcomes they're afraid would happen if they did in fact allow their emotions to be more expressed. And then perhaps you will have some information to go off of, if they're willing to admit it.
Okay.
If they're not, there's not much you can do for them.
How does one know when they found that partner? So I know I've seen a video where you said that the purpose of relationships is to reflect one another, what one needs to know to become more of themselves. How do you know that you are the version of yourself that is ready to commit and has learned that lesson?
You will feel freer, you will feel lighter in the presence of a person who serves you that way if you're willing to be open to it. You will actually feel more like yourself. You have heard this phrase on your planet uttered in those kinds of relationships where people say, I feel more like me in your presence. I feel I can be expressive of who I truly am when you're around. That kind of feeling is usually a reflection of when someone is serving you to be more of yourself, because they are not judging you, they are accepting you for who you are and accepting whatever processes you may need to go through to discover more clearly who you are. And so that usually translates as feeling free to be yourself in that relationship, whatever that means at the moment. Free to explore being more. It's a lightness of feeling. It's a lightness and feeling of freedom.
Okay.
Does that help you at all?
Yes, that was very beautiful and poetic. I loved it.
All right.
How accurate is using astrology? Is it
depends on the person. It depends on the person. Remember that all things in physical reality are permission slips. Some permission slips work for people and some don't. It depends on whether it aligns with your belief system. If it does, it will work for you. If you're attracted to use it, the attraction is usually a sign that it's aligning with your belief system and will work for you. Ultimately, of course, you realize you are the ultimate permission slip because you're the one making the changes anyway. And that eventually you no longer need the permission slip itself to make those changes. But it can illuminate sometimes and reflect to you some of the things that are going on within your consciousness because you believe it is something that can work for you. So it depends on the person and what their belief system is about that particular permission slip. And remember, all those things are reflections. They're not causes.
Okay. My last question is, what do I need to know at this moment that will help me in my journey of helping others through what I do?
What you need to know is that a healer simply provides an opportunity to explore options that the person needing to be healed needs to match and align with in order to heal themselves. A healer never heals anyone directly, but they give the person the opportunity to heal themselves. Whatever a person does with whatever it is you share with them is none of your business. You have done all you can just by providing the option and the opportunity to match the frequency you're giving off in order for that person to decide to heal themselves. It's not that they have to do that, and many people may come to you with different agendas, including the inability to heal themselves. So you have still given them what they came for. So you have to relax the idea that you need to heal everyone and save everyone, because you can't do that. You can only provide them with the option that someday they may incorporate within themselves when they are ready to do so. Does that lighten the issue for you?
Yes. Thank you so much, Bashar.
You are so welcome. Aveo.
Hello, Bashar from Switzerland. I had a question regarding the hybridization agenda that you mentioned, that we can choose to become the sixth hybrid race. And I'm asking, what is so beneficial for us to become this hybrid race, since we are mixing our DNA with a race that went through a negative path? Of course, they went through a big transformation, but what are we gaining from becoming this hybrid race? Since we are receiving a lot of downloads and information from you, but in terms of the DNA exchange, what is the win situation for us? Thank you for your reply. Have a nice day.
You have a misunderstanding. You are not mixing DNA with a group that went through a negative path. You're mixing with the hybrids who have never experienced that path. The grays experience the negativity, but the hybrids have not. Therefore, you are mixing with a different form of humanity that has never experienced negativity. That is what helps you uplift. That is what raises your vibration, is taking advantage of the information and perspectives of a group of beings that are a different form of human, that have only experienced the idea of positive vibrations that move you forward in your evolutionary path to becoming the sixth hybrid race, which is simply another way of saying that you are functioning fully, more fully as human beings, which most of you actually aren't yet fully human.
Hello, Bashar and everyone.
Good day, good day.
I had a dream that I'd like to get your insight on.
All right.
I was traveling to and moving into an abandoned southwestern home. I went to the kitchen and opened up a rectangular door about 3 foot long, and there was a diminutive alien skeleton in it that was glowing orange, had an orange metallic tunic, Native American beads, a feather headdress with red, white, blue, yellow, orange feathers that were mottled. It certainly wasn't of this world. I opened the oven and another skeleton was in flames, but I don't think it was being consumed. This felt like a very deeply sacred and spiritual experience that I felt honored to be a part of. And it's just kind of baffled me. It just impacted me so much. Do you have any thoughts or comments?
Yes. What you experience to some degree is a recognition and a perception of the interaction between some ancient extraterrestrial beings and the indigenous tribes of your Southwest in the past. Many indigenous tribes, many indigenous peoples on your planet have had contact with extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional beings for hundreds, if not thousands of years. The irony is that while many people on your planet are waiting for open contact, many indigenous peoples have had open contact for quite a long time. It's just that in their cultures, they don't necessarily share that readily with other cultures who don't know that's going on. And in the cultures that don't know it's going on, their belief systems often prevent them from accepting the fact that that's been happening in the indigenous cultures. So on one level, you're perceiving the fact that this has been going on for quite some time. You're picking up on some very ancient vibrations, ancient encounters, represented by the blending of those ET forms with ancient Atlantean and Aztecan kinds of regalia that they are wearing, which represents the idea of the blending and the interactions and connections between the two, and how many ancient indigenous peoples are actually the ancestors of some of those extraterrestrial beings. The idea of the being on fire in the oven is a representation of the kind of power and energy that they bring with them in coming from one dimension, one reality, to another. You are perceiving a connection between your physical reality and a different reality being expressed to you in those symbolic forms with connections to these ancient extraterrestrial consciousnesses. Does that help you?
Yes, wow, that's so powerful. Thank you.
Yes.
In December of 2010, I woke up and received a download, and it was elements of this incredible story, an iconic mythical figure of modern times that has a connection with Atlantis. And I could see this story being like a combination of the magic of Harry Potter with the intrigue of the Da Vinci Code and an epic tale of Lord of the Rings. I could see this story being shared to share spiritual concepts in an entertaining way. I've spent years researching Atlantis, the Tuatha De Danann, High Brazil, ancient civilizations, megalithic cultures, and I'm just stuck. I've not been able to write. I'm a good writer, but I write usually like marketing materials. Fiction and character development, I'm just having a hard time. But my research has led me to you. And I'm just wanting to know, maybe is my purpose to the journey to be here, or am I to write this? I'm stuck. I don't know what to do.
All right, you can write it, but are you familiar with the idea of story structure?
Well, no, not really.
All right. So it might be of assistance to you to investigate the concept of story structure, because in the telling of any tale, in the telling of any story, it is highly critical, highly important to make sure you are following story structure, because story structure is built into the psyche of humanity. And if you tell a story with the salient points, the salient, shall we say, beats of a story structure that are built into your psyche, then people will remember the story. It will feel authentic. If you miss any of those beats, it won't feel authentic. It won't resonate. This is why stories last for thousands of years, because if the pattern is followed of story structure, it resonates with that structure in all of your psyches. So we would suggest that you investigate the idea of story structure and follow that general outline. Get used to the understanding of what kind of beats need to be in a story, how they need to be presented, when they need to be presented. Then you can loosen up the structure a little bit according to the way your intuition will drive the story forward. But following the structure in general is highly important to tell the story in the correct way. Since you don't have a framework for what story structure is, that may be where you're getting slowed down.
Yeah, it was some great elements, but I just don't know how to proceed. I have a main character, but I don't have anything else. So.
All right. Well, again, story structure can inform you as to what the main character needs to go through in order for it to seem relevant to your readers. You may avail yourself of many books that exist in your society about story structure, one of the most popular being the idea called The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that one. So, yes.
Have you read it? Have you read it?
No, but I am familiar with Joseph Campbell. I've read several of his books. So
All right. Well, you have not read The Hero's Journey then?
no.
All right. That is the one specifically that outlines the idea of story structure. You can
I'll look into that.
You can also avail yourself of several that are connected to the idea of the film industry, because they also talk about the importance of story structure, even though it may be presented in filmic terms.
Yeah.
So,
great. Thank you.
Familiarize
Thank you
yourself
so
with that.
much.
And when you understand the story structure, it will inform your character and inform you as to what your character needs to experience.
Wonderful. So after this download, I made a commitment to it that I would follow wherever that took me. And a few months later, my longtime marriage ended. And just kind of to summarize briefly, I kind of went into a dark night of the soul.
How
One morning
exciting.
I woke up and there was an energetic presence.
Yes.
And immediately Paul McCartney's song, Let It Be, when I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary will come to me. And I just got this overwhelming sense of unconditional love.
Yes.
And then a few minutes later, I had a vision of a woman in a scarlet dress who was a very strong, spirited woman, but also very loving. And these experiences just baffled me. A couple of days later, I was in a state of well-being and bliss immediately, but that lasted a couple of days. And I knew this was real because my reality had been completely altered.
Yes, it's up to you to continue the vibration once you've been exposed to it. All you have to do is remember what that felt like when that vision came to you, and you're actually back in that frequency, even though it may feel different.
What is the origin of these? I just called it energetic presence, but
Yes, but you called upon the idea of Mary as a reflection, but not the Mother Mary. You called upon the Magdalene.
okay.
Hence the scarlet
Wonderful.
dress.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Thus,
final. Oh, go ahead.
yes, thus the idea of standing within your self-empowerment, being the one to tell the stories, being the one to hold the information, the one to spread it among the people. This is what the Magdalene was responsible for, in taking the information that was provided by the individual known as Jesus and spreading it among the disciples. The Magdalene was the primary disciple responsible for spreading the information. So you are calling upon her fortitude to spread the information that you need to spread. She is encouraging you to move forward with that.
Wow. Wow. Final question.
Yes.
So I live in an area in southern Illinois that's nicknamed Little Egypt.
Yes.
We have towns named Luxor, Thebes, Karnak, Cairo. Comically, also, I live in a town that had the motto, Hub of the Universe.
Yeah.
I live in a small town. Not Midwest, not hub of the earth or galaxy, hub of the universe.
Yes.
Is this just small town egocentric thinking, or is there something to this and the Little Egypt theme?
You know there is something to it, and that's why you're there. So it helps you with your connections, the connections you have made to aid and assist you in this life to move forward in your themes of exploration and your expression of your passion. So it gives you a kind of a center balance point from which you can expand yourself, from which you can express yourself. So it is usable and recognizable as the energy of a vortex that you can draw upon to center yourself, balance yourself, and come from your center to be the hub of your universe.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bashar. I'm so grateful, and grateful for our community here.
Our deep appreciation to you as well. Please move forward with your truth.
Thank you.
Good day. While many of you have been experiencing more synchronicity in your lives by using the formula that we have outlined, following your passion to the best you can, no assumption, no insistence on the outcome, remaining in a positive state no matter what manifests so that you can gain the benefit from it, we have come to realize in various conversations that there may still be a little bit of misunderstanding or confusion or lack of clarity about some of these concepts we have discussed with you in the past. Therefore, today, in this transmission, we would like to provide a little bit more precision in the understanding and explanation and definition of these concepts of state of being, circumstance, and synchronicity, and how they work. So the idea is to understand, first and foremost, that some people, when we talk about circumstance, and we have said circumstance doesn't matter, only state of being matters, there are many things to understand about this that will help clarify this concept. When we talk about the idea that circumstances don't matter, we don't mean that they don't have value. We don't mean that you should ignore the circumstance. Some people have taken that phrase in this manner. What we're saying is, circumstances are the result of your state of being. They don't cause the state of being, your belief systems do. And when your belief systems create a state of being, that's what generates your reality experience, the reflection you get in your physical reality that creates the so-called circumstance or situation that you experience. So while the idea is that the circumstance isn't what creates your state of being, it can still be used to understand what your state of being is. Saying that it doesn't matter simply means it isn't the causation of your state of being. Therefore, don't go off the circumstance as if that's what's responsible for the state of being you're in. Always look to your belief systems first to determine why your state of being is the way it is, why your vibrational frequency is at the level that it's at. Therefore, you can always use your circumstance as a guiding mechanism to get in touch with what you would have to believe is true in order to have created this reflection, this circumstance. But sometimes you will just create circumstance to gauge what your state of being is, to be able to tell, like a reflective mirror, well, because of this circumstance and these things being arranged in this way and this prop here and that person there saying this thing at this time, look to your response, look to your reaction to those things to help you illuminate what your belief system is that's creating the state of being that is giving you this reflective circumstance in order, again, to get in touch with what the belief system is. It's kind of a circular tool. The idea is then not to ignore the circumstance as if it has no importance or no value, but to utilize it to gauge for yourself more clarity in what you believe to be true, that is therefore creating a vibrational frequency that brings about this particular circumstance in order for you to understand more clearly what your belief system is, in order to reveal what that is to you more clearly. So it's about using the circumstance in the way it is designed, in the way it is built, not just ignoring it and thinking you can change your state of being without necessarily understanding why the circumstance is what it is as a set of props in order for you to get in touch with what the belief is that created the state of being to begin with, that brought about the circumstance. Also, connecting to the concept of synchronicity that brings you these circumstances in exactly the form in which they come, it's very important to understand how synchronicity works in a little bit more detail. It's all well and good when you allow yourself to recognize synchronicity, when it brings you an opportunity that is representative of your passion, and it brings you the ability to act on things in the direction of your passion, and it brings you signs and signals that you learn to interpret as being representative of your path, which again is represented by the vibration of your passion. But also, there are times when people might become a little bit confused, a little bit frustrated, why certain things are not going in the direction you thought that they would. Well, again, of course, this ties into not having insistence or assumption, as we have said many times. But the idea also is that synchronicity will work not only to provide you an opportunity to act, but more importantly, will sometimes provide you an opportunity to not be able to act in the direction that is not representative of your path of least resistance. Many people don't understand that synchronicity can use the negative side for positive reasons. So your inability sometimes to actually go forward in a certain direction is also an indication sometimes of synchronicity, showing you this is not the next step to take. This is not the direction you need to go in. This is not the path of least resistance, even though at first it may have seemed so. So it's important to really clarify in your observational skills, in your discernment skills, the ability to tell when synchronicity is not only telling you, yes, act on this, but is also telling you, do not act on this. You don't have the ability to act on this. This is not going to take you further. And you have to pay attention and have the discernment to tell the difference between when synchronicity is telling you, this is not something you can act on, or whether or not is your own fear-based belief telling you not to go forward. We understand that this can be sometimes a little bit challenging to tell apart, but nevertheless, once you begin to understand a little bit more clearly that synchronicity can work this way and actually prevent you from moving forward on a path that is not yours, you'll be able to tell the difference through practice between your own fears stopping you and synchronicity simply putting up its hand and saying, no, not this way. Look for the other way that contains your passion. Don't keep trying to go down this path, because right now, this is not the path of least resistance. This is not representative of the passion that is truly you. So the idea is that synchronicity and circumstance and state of being all work together, kind of in a triad, to help give you the guidance and give you the ability to know where you stand as a navigational tool, so to speak, at any given moment, to let you know what is something to act on, what is not something to act on, and to observe these things, to stay in that state where you look at your state of being, where you look at the circumstance and the value that it brings you as a reflection, and you understand and look at the synchronicity and how it is working, both in the ability to act or the ability not to act. You can gain in that process more insight into exactly your timing, your pacing, making sure that you are exactly where you need to be when you need to be there in terms of your state of being. And remember, please, it is not about trying to get somewhere more than it is simply being exactly where you are in that process. Never assume you need to rush forward. Never assume you need to go faster than you are or slower than you are. The idea is that the synchronicity in working with state of being and circumstance, if you are willing to have this discernment and realize all the different ways this is working for you and use these tools in the way they can work for you, you will then always be willing and excited to stay in the moment, in the process, because that's the most important thing right there. Not where you need to go after that, but right there, that's the whole idea. That's the whole reason why whatever is happening is to be in that process and in a state of being and in a circumstance synchronistically where you are examining your belief systems, finding out what the value of the circumstance is as it came to you, discerning what synchronicity is telling you about moving forward or not moving forward at that particular moment in that particular way, and adjusting your state of being and first and foremost your belief systems in order to allow your state of being to bring you the circumstance and the synchronicity in the form in which it is most clear and working most precisely to allow you to take the best possible advantage of the formula and the instruction manual that we have shared with all of you. So let this sink in, ponder this, and allow these things in this moment that you ponder them to simply come to you and work for you. Again, you don't have to be anywhere else more important than what's happening in that moment. and just dive deeply into it. Meditate on it, think about it, however you wish to do it, but stay with that triad of state of being and circumstance and synchronicity, and really give yourself an opportunity to learn to develop the discernment to find out exactly what each of those tools is working for you and how it works for you best, by just staying right there with it and not being in a hurry to be anywhere else.
The first one is, you talk about how similar to when we wake up from a dream while we're asleep in physical reality, it is that when we die, we wake up from the physical back into who we are as a soul. From your perspective, does this process continue beyond that once we are awake as a soul, or are we totally awake? Do we wake up at some point from being a soul back to being an oversoul, or from an oversoul, and so on? How does it all work?
When you are a soul, you are totally awake as a soul. You can connect to the oversoul. You can start to experience points of view from the oversoul. The idea is not so much that you wake up as the oversoul, for both will exist simultaneously in the realm of spirit, in the realm of non-physical reality. But you can have experiences as if you are seeing from the oversoul perspective. You can have experiences as if you are seeing from higher perspectives, oversouls of oversouls, and even from the perspective of all that is. But it's not the same as waking up, because you haven't forgotten who you are. Exactly in the sense of the connection between soul, oversoul, oversouls of oversouls, and all that is. On that level, things start to exist more concretely in a simultaneous way, and you can have experiences of having the point of view and perspective of those other levels, but it's not the same as waking up to realize you are that.
Okay, and what happens to the soul when we physically die?
What do you mean? You become the soul. You are the soul. You wake up as the soul. Your body idea, your experience of physical reality remains within you as the soul. Remember, your body doesn't have a soul. Your soul has a body. So to ask what happens to the soul when we die is a question coming from the linear physical perspective, as if your body is, in a sense, more real than the soul. You are a soul, and when you die, in a sense, you absorb the experience you had within the soul of the physical being that you created within the soul. Again, similar to the idea of as you grow as an adult, you absorb the experience you had as a child. But you are now an adult. Yet you can call upon the experiences you've had as a child. So as a soul, you can call upon the experiences you had from the physical perspective, but all that happened within the soul.
Okay, and if we are all living past and future lives in the present moment, then why is it that when babies are born, they need to relearn how to be human? They need to relearn the simplest things like how to talk, count, and interact with people. It is like they are discovering the world for the first time, but it's not the first time because we have many lives before and after.
But it is the first time for that personality. Your sentence is mixing the idea of the physical persona and the soul's experience when you say we. So the idea is you are creating a new physical persona that is injecting itself into the experience of physical reality and choosing to forget who it is so it can rediscover who it is from a new point of view. So it is the first time for that personality, and there has to be that first time experience for that personality to absorb all of the belief systems that are representative of the challenges that the soul chose to face as that unique new personality from a linear perspective. So that's why you have to forget who you are as a soul, even though you may be able to access all sorts of incarnational experiences that coexist simultaneously from the soul perspective. From the physical perspective, this is you uniquely for the first time. And therefore you have to learn things in the way that it is relevant for that personality to learn how to talk and walk and reconnect to things in a way, or connect to things in a way for the first time, to satisfy what that physical personality's journey is all about, which is going to be completely different from any other personality's journey. So it has to build up from scratch.
And how can a person tell if it's their last lifetime on Earth?
You will make that decision when you are in spirit. You cannot necessarily know that decision now. You may feel that there is a good chance you might choose that when you are back in spirit, back as the soul. And therefore, as the soul, you may say, yes, that was it. And now I'm going to move on. But you will have discussions with your spirit guides and all sorts of other beings when you are in spirit. And really, you will not completely form that decision until you are in spirit. You don't know right now, from the physical perspective, what else the soul itself may choose to experience. So you have many choices, and yes, you don't have to reincarnate, so to speak, on Earth. You can choose other kinds of experiences. But again, you will make that decision when you are in spirit.
And does each oversoul have a higher mind similar to our individual higher mind? And is the higher mind of all oversouls God?
In a sense, yes. The higher mind of anything and everything is what you call God. Although, again, it's infinite and eternal. There is no end. And even the idea of all that is can have a higher mind of a multitude of all that is.
And is our soul our higher mind?
Yes, same thing. The soul is the higher mind because that is the portion that is still experiencing itself as spirit, as a soul. So that becomes the higher mind, the guide for the physical personality the soul has created within the center of its being.
And do animals have higher minds?
Yes, because animals have souls, and the soul is the higher mind.
How is an animal soul different from a human soul?
It's different in purpose, it's different in vibrational frequency, it's different in intention, it's different in focus. The energy is the same, the essence is the same, but the vibrational patterns that determine what it is are different. It's like saying electromagnetic energy, light, is light, whether it's visible light, invisible light, red, green, yellow, blue, whatever. It's all made of the same stuff, so to speak, but the different frequencies determine that it appears and presents itself as different in terms of its effect. So animal souls, human souls, all souls are in a sense made of the same stuff, the same energy, the same consciousness, the same extension of source, and all that is. But the frequencies that determine it is an animal as opposed to a human are different. It's a different color, so to speak.
Can animals become humans or vice versa after they die and return to the physical world?
There is a type of progression where, from your perspective, it can appear that an animal consciousness has evolved into expressing itself as something like a human consciousness. It is unlikely that human consciousness become animal consciousness in an incarnational sense. Human consciousness can perceive itself and experience itself as an animal consciousness, but not necessarily physiologically. It is something that happens on the spirit level, in the spirit realm, in a certain way that you can experience while you're physical, but it's not like you're actually incarnating as an animal physically.
And are there an infinite number of souls to match one for each parallel human individual?
Yes.
And if we create vibrational representations of other souls' energy, but are not actually interacting with those energies directly in the material world, how is it possible that we can interact with anyone but ourselves?
Because you're picking up on the vibrational frequency of another, and you are using that frequency in part to create or co-create the version that you're interacting with, made out of your energy. So when you make a simulation of another being, part of that simulation contains the frequency differences in that other being, so that they do in fact appear different to you. The fact that you can perceive them as a different person is the clue that you are utilizing some of their frequency to create that representation, even though you're creating it out of your own consciousness and out of your own energy in order to have something to interact with. So the differences, the fact that you see it as a different person, is representative that you are incorporating into that simulation some of their frequency to represent themselves that way.
Is it possible to fully experience ourselves as our higher selves?
Yes, when you die. But you can have a version of yourself by getting very close to the idea, in the same way we have expressed that we are quasi-physical. On the chart that we have given you for this particular transmission, you will see the idea on the right-hand side of the fourth density human, where the physical mind has expanded back closer to being the level of the soul. And then you see above that the version that represents non-physical reality experience as an astral form or a near-death experience form. We are in the middle between those two, where we are very close to the idea of being the astral form, the spirit form, but we still retain physical attributes. That's why we are quasi-physical. So we represent as best as possible the idea of our higher minds, the soul, in physical terms by being quasi-physical, by having attributes of both the soul level and the physical level in a balanced and blended way. That's how you do it. It's not exactly the identical experience of being the soul, but it is a very close representation while still experiencing yourself to some degree as physical.
And can soul fragments from the same higher self or oversoul be family members? For example, can cousins be soul fragments from the same higher self?
There's no such thing as soul fragments. There are souls. If you're calling a fragment one of the souls that is connected to an oversoul, well, all right, then we understand your terminology. But there are no soul fragments. Souls are whole beings.
Okay, and is it true that twins have the same oversoul?
They can. They don't have to, but they can. It may be very likely, but it doesn't have to be absolute.
In the case of identical versus fraternal, is there any difference regarding oversoul connection?
It is more likely that identical might be extensions of the same oversoul. Again, it's not an absolute. And it might be more likely that twins that are only fraternal and not identical might still be extensions of the same oversoul, or more likely extensions of different oversouls for different reasons. But again, you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. Both are possible, but it's not an absolute. It depends on the purpose for the creation of the reflection of the twin or the triplet or what have you.
So I'm coming back to the idea of soul fragments. So there is no such thing as a soul fragment?
No. If you're referring to a soul fragment as simply one of the souls that make up an oversoul, then again, we understand the way you're using that terminology. But there is no such thing, aside from that expression, as a soul fragment. Souls are whole beings. There is no fragment of a soul.
Okay. And if this person's saying they know they're a soul with a body, but is it possible for an oversoul to have many different bodies?
Well, yes, that's exactly what an oversoul does. An oversoul has many different souls, and each soul can have an incarnational physical experience or a body. That's exactly the description of the idea of how the oversoul experiences itself, because many of the souls that make it up may choose to have incarnations in different places and different times, and all of that experience as physical beings feeds back through the soul to the oversoul that is having all those experiences at the same time.
And this person would love to know what determines the oversoul group that we end up being in. Also, once an oversoul group, is manifest, do we remain in that group permanently?
Yes. You don't end up being in an oversoul. You start out that way. That's who you are. You're part of that vibration. You're part of that larger aspect of all that is. And then as an individual soul, you are an extension of that oversoul. That's who you are. You don't end up being there.
And how common is it for people with the same oversoul to meet in the same lifetime?
It's quite common. There can be many counterparts that will cross paths with each other, maybe interact with each other in a variety of different ways. Again, it depends upon the purpose for such an interaction. So I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it's quite common.
And how do you explain the concept of souls parallel life experiences impacting our current life journey? And what implications does this have on the infinite potential of our souls?
Well, again, this is what we've talked about many times when you talk about the idea of incarnations, past, present, future, where you're making cross connections energetically, informationally, sharing that information between different experiences that all coexist simultaneously, whether they seem to be in your historical timeline or in a parallel reality, doesn't matter. You connect to what you need to connect to draw information and experience from what serves your particular life path. So you're always plugging into and unplugging from different experiences in parallel realities to inform your life path, as other beings are doing for you. Plugging into you to draw down your experience and information into them to help them with their life path, because it's just like one giant dynamic interactive internet. You're constantly sending and receiving information to different versions of extensions of different souls and parallel realities and what have you, in order to inform your path while you help others inform their path.
And does the higher mind or soul take feedback from the physical mind or the personality? For example, if someone is done and they've changed their mind about exploring something because it's actually more painful than they anticipated, can they terminate the agreement? And how can they do that?
No, you cannot terminate an agreement. You can postpone it, you can delay it, you cannot terminate it. An agreement is something that, in a sense, is part of your experience as a soul, that makes you unique, that makes you what you are. So when you have set up within yourself the parameters that allow you to experience parts of who you are, you cannot terminate that, because it would be like terminating a part of yourself, and you can't do that ultimately. You can postpone it. You can decide to leave physical reality before your prescribed time, the time that you originally set up, your end point, your exit point, because that's what you call suicide, when you leave early. But then you realize, when you go back into the soul form, that you were not finished with the agreement you made to be you in that way, to learn that thing that actually allows you to grow as a soul, as the soul you are, the unique soul you are. So you cannot change that. So you will perhaps postpone it. You may linger for a while and experience different things as a soul, non-physically, but then you will realize that in order to progress, in order to move forward, in order to grow, in order to change, you will, in some way, shape, or form, need to fulfill the parameters of that agreement, or you will not move forward. And not moving forward and not growing will at some point be such a strong and powerful urge within you because of the nature of existence to expand that you will finally decide in some way, shape, or form to continue to fulfill that agreement until you fulfill it. So you cannot erase it, but you can postpone it.